Zhiyun has recently released their latest gimbal. As we have here over here is the Zhiyun WEEBILL-S. This is their latest addition to their mirrorless camera gimbal compared to their previously the WEEBILL Lab and the Crane 3 Lab. Today we're just going to focus on looking at this WEEBILL-S in terms of the beginner's filmmaker's perspective. First of all, the unboxing experience. As you can see from here, the box is really small because that further highlights how compact this gimbal it is. Because when we take it out, it is just a foam box instead of the previous hand-carry foam case. I mean, what Zhiyun has told us is that some of the user feedback saying that they are not going to use this foam hand-carrying case, so that's why they remove it altogether. Well, although you still can use it, this foam case, but you have to look for a secondary bag that you can fit this in, or otherwise just fold the gimbal and then chuck it in your bag because the battery is removable. We'll come back to that later. Now, the accessories, what you get in the box is of course the WEEBILL-S gimbal, and there's this extension camera mount so that you can actually install bigger camera with bigger lens so that you can balance it out. Otherwise, the eyepiece over will touch the motor at the back here. This was not previously included on their previous gimbals, so a nice addition. This one is the battery charger that uses USB Type-C port. So you can charge the 18650 type of battery over here externally. This is extremely useful if you have spare batteries that you want to charge it while you still want to use the gimbal. Next up is of course the USB Type-A to Type-C cable over here. You can use it to charge this battery or simply connect it to the gimbal to update the firmware. Now, this accessory box contains a whole tons of different cables. Well, these are different types of interfaces so that you can connect the camera to the gimbal itself, so that you can actually control the camera settings, let's say the ISO or exposure settings. So they have included like multi-USB, USB micro, USB Type-C, and as well as the long forgotten mini USB. So a total of 4 of them. Okay, now first up, the gimbal, the outlook. If you look from this side, it's extremely compact. Of course, if you remove this detachable tripod, it gets even smaller. Now this removable tripod is extremely useful because for one, it folds up in this holding monopod kind of shape, and you can actually mount it and on top of here so that you can use it in the briefcase recording mode and call it. So let's just turn it on so that you can see how it actually works. You can see how it works from here. So it's a very quick transition from the upright traditional recording mode to a briefcase mode, low angle shooting mode. Now, even though the gimbal is very small, but Zhiyun has stated that this motor can support very high payload, especially big camera and big lenses. For example, you can put on a Sony A7 Mark III on top of the FE24-70 f2.8 lens. Now, of course, this gimbal can support more cameras and different lenses combination. You can refer back to Zhiyun's website to learn more about that. Next up is of course, you can see from here there are some of these red latches all around the gimbal here. These are extremely useful feature which is you can find on Zhiyun's and some other third-party gimbals, because it locks down all the axles so that you can use it to, of course, number one, easy for you to balance your camera. Secondly, you can also easily use it for storage or transport. If you're on the field shooting and then you want to switch locations, just lock it up and then move on to the next location. And then there is another very interesting feature, which is the use of a quick release plate on this one. Now, quick release plate is not new on tripods or whatever, but for something like these gimbals where you need to balance the camera every time you put it on it, having a fixed position for the camera settings and then take it out, go for some shooting, and then when you come back, just snap it back on, and then yep, your camera is still well balanced, and you don't have to figure like, or whether if you have changed some of the movement or whatever stuff you have to do with it. It is extremely useful for those of us who want to sometimes use the same camera for photo shoot as well as video shoot. And of course, with the quick release plate, you can easily take off the camera to change the battery, because some cameras might have very difficult to reach battery compartments under there. Now moving on to the controls of this gimbal here. Most of the control buttons are located at the front of the gimbal here. Of course, there are a few other buttons on the left hand side, for example, the pan follow as well as lock follow. Now, most of the controls, buttons and joysticks are located at the body itself, including this tiny little LCD screen, which is extremely useful if you want to change some of the gimbal settings over here. Unlike some of its competitor, which forces you to download a mobile app, pair the app to the gimbal so that you can actually change the gimbal settings. I mean, that is just too much hassle to deal with. Now, some of these controls might be very useful, especially when we have a micro USB port over here for you to connect your camera to the gimbal to sync up the controls. Like I said previously, we have a lot of cables for you to connect different types and different brands of cameras. For supported cameras, for example, you can use this wheel to change the focus point, or let's say you can use this rotary wheel to change the exposure settings. Like all those controls can be done over here. Even the shutter button over here has a half press to focus functionality to it. Unfortunately, for our case, since we are using the A7S Mark I, which is not supported officially by Zhiyun WEEBILL-S, so whenever I try to connect the camera to the gimbal, the camera will just refuse to connect. But one thing I managed to find out is that if I change the gimbal setting from Sony to Canon, well, for some reason, I can control the exposure settings, especially the aperture, half press to focus, full press to take photo, and the red button to start recording. I don't know why. Maybe the A7S Mark I is using the same USB protocol as Canon cameras. Well, who expect that, right? Now, speaking of the settings that you can configure on this gimbal, of course you can change the motor aggressiveness as well as the speed of the reaction time. Now, these are really important features because especially whenever you're on the field shooting, right? Sometimes you feel that, okay, this part, the motor is moving way too fast than what I want it to be. Just go into the settings. There's a setting in the motor section for you to change all the functions in it. Of course, there is also a auto tune function for you to synchronize the gimbal to the camera's weight. Now, some of the useful things like the trigger over here, of course, if you hold it, it will follow you to the focus. I mean, depending on where you point it, then the camera will point it towards the direction. If you, let's say, double press it, it will return to its default position. Triple press it, it will switch it around. Well, if you're a vlogger or I don't know, if you take a lot of selfie videos, selfies, or whatever you want to call it, this gimbal is actually helpful. If you have strong arms to support this, which is definitely not my kind of stuff, triple press it and it will turn it back to the front. Now back to the mobile apps. Okay, I do know that some of these competitors, they have mobile apps, they force you to use it. Zhiyun, you can use the gimbal without the app, but of course they have Zhiyun Play apps for you to connect the phone to it. And yep, by all the settings you can also change in the Zhiyun app. But one thing that is really interesting is that they have this so-called mobile gyro control to it. Let me just show you how it works. as you can see from here, Zhiyun is using the phone's gyroscope to send the signal to the gimbal so that can turn around. According to how you orient the phone to be. This is especially useful if you have a assistant with you. He controls the camera movement, and then another guy just holding the gimbal steady, or just put it on top of the table. Now, it might look gimmicky, but I do certainly hope that we actually have the opportunity to test it out, especially if we have the wireless transmission kit, so that it will transmit the video signal wirelessly to another device, which means I can look through what the camera is looking at and then control the gimbal movement without having to stand over at the camera side, which is something interesting in case you're filming at sports event, you fear that the ball might kill you. Other than that, the app is pretty much basic. Of course, you still can control the minor movement and everything. You can control all these tilting, panning, and what else, the recording if you have the camera connected to the gimbal. Otherwise, this Zhiyun app is still pretty basic, I must say. But for me, since everything can be controlled on the gimbal, yeah, all is good. At the end of the day, a gimbal is still a gimbal, and it has one task to accomplish, which is to provide a steady platform for the camera to record. If I use it in the standard mode, of course, standard mode is very easy to use. You can hold it in both hands. The footage is extremely smooth. Of course, compared to many other gimbals, this is relatively small so that you can easily maneuver it. Now, one thing I don't really like about this WEEBILL-S is that they are still positioned all the buttons, joysticks, and control wheels at the palm position. So if you're able to forget to lock down the control buttons, your palms might interfere with the controls and accidentally change, let's say, the exposure, or worse, stop the recording. Of course, you can actually use the extension holder so that you can avoid touching all the controls. But sometimes if you want to have a secondary monopod over here so that you can balance it out, but unfortunately it is sold separately, as the box itself only comes with this single tripod monopod holder. And of course, the footage we have from this gimbal is extremely smooth. So on this briefcase mode, you can go into very low angle and shoot it upwards. Well, it depends on how you want to transition it. Like I said just now, it will be better if there's a secondary holder so that you can actually balance it out much more easier. Now, thanks to the 360 motor over here, we can actually do some of the very interesting footage over here. For example, in the briefcase recording motion, and you can enable vortex mode by double pressing the POV button, and then this is the kind of stuff you can do. Now, for the battery life of the WEEBILL-S, Zhiyun has stated that a single full charge can last you for about 14 hours of continuous shooting. Well, 14 hours is certainly more than enough what you will ever need. Imagine holding a gimbal for 14 hours straight. For the battery, instead of using proprietary batteries, Zhiyun has opted to use the 18650 battery we have over here. It's relatively cheap to replace, and you can find it at any of your nearest stores, and you can get it replaced easily. Or in case if you think that 14 hours is not enough for you, feel free to get a second pair of it and go for 28. Why not, right? Now, to conclude our review of the Zhiyun WEEBILL-S, first we must talk about the price of it. At the price of 1,499 ringgit in Malaysia, or $349 US, This is one of the most affordable gimbal you can get for your mirrorless camera. Now, there are a couple of features that especially stand out for the WEEBILL-S. For one is its footprint. At the size of A4 paper when you fold it up. Now you just take the battery out from the gimbal, chuck this little gimbal into your check-in bag, keep the battery inside your hand carry-on, and that's it. Move on to your next travel location. Now, as we mentioned earlier in this review, since we're going to talk about how this will benefit if you're a beginner filmmaker, since this gimbal has a very strong motor and it is able to support very high payload, that means you can continue to use this gimbal throughout your journey of upgrading. Let's say you upgrade from a small camera to a bigger camera, bigger lens, just throw it on this gimbal and it will be able to support. Another thing to mention is that all the features here are located inside this gimbal itself. The settings, the configuration is over here. Even though you don't have the app, you can use it without having any issue. So all of those things are the reasons why it is very useful if you are a beginner filmmaker. And of course, some of those features that we have never mentioned, for example, the trans-mount wireless image transmission kit, and as well as some of the accessories you can mount it over here for your smartphone mount, or even those wireless controllers. All of those are expansions which you can purchase in the future. So as you can see, if you have more gears down the road, more crews within your team, right, you can get this gimbal into some sort of a beast, I guess. The Zhiyun WEEBILL-S is a very good gimbal for you to get started with filmmaking. Now, at a price that affordable, I don't think you can get anything else for this. Now, do let us know what do you guys think of the Zhiyun WEEBILL-S. If you have any questions, do set it up in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Whee! I'm gonna leave that in.